Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Dear students, staff, faculty, distinguished guests, and friends, thank you all for coming to the Whitman School of Management today for what will be a recurring event moving forward. A series of outstanding guest speakers who will share their perspective on contemporary issues in business practice. If we haven't met yet, my name is Alex McKelvey. I'm the interim dean of the Whitman School. Before we get started with the event, I would like to acknowledge, with respect, the Onondaga Nation, firekeepers of the Haudenosaunee, the indigenous people on whose ancestral lands Syracuse University now stands. So many of you might be thinking, why are we filling the Lender Auditorium on a very snowy day in January and creating a guest speaker series? And the reasons are actually quite simple. Integrating industry into what Whitman does helps us to prepare our students for what lies ahead. Building bridges with global business leaders helps to provide insight into the types of challenges and opportunities that are taking place in industry. It helps to reinforce how the education that is taking place in our classrooms is applicable in the real world. And having executives share their perspective from the top helps reinforce positive role models and inspire us about what it takes to be successful in business. And frankly, at the end of the day, it's all about making an impact on the education of our Whitman students to help them see what they can do and shape the business landscape of the future. And in other words, what that means is that this is simply what top business schools do, and Whitman is certainly one of those. So today's guest, our first in the series, is also very fitting, knowing that Micron will be hugely impactful on the Whitman School and the Syracuse community moving forward. At the conclusion of the event, we'd like to invite everyone to a brief reception upstairs in the Flom Grand Hall, one floor above where we are right now. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator for today's event, the Vice Chancellor for Strategic Initiatives and Innovation at Syracuse University, the Barnes Professor of Entrepreneurship, and the Executive Dean of the Whitman School of Management, Mike Haney.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you. So, it's working, right? You can all hear me?
Yeah.
So,
I can hear you.
Thank you. I think Alex understated the significance of, both why we're here and who our guest is today. And I want to foot stomp the first one. Students, get used to this. We're going to do this once a month, every single month, because this is what, as Alex said, this is what great business schools do. And we are and aspire to be a great business school. You know, it was a year ago in October that on this campus, Micron announced these words, transformative, once in a generation, all of that is true, a $100 billion investment in Central New York to build what will be one of the largest semiconductor manufacturing facilities in the world, about 15 miles from where we're sitting right now. 9,000 direct jobs with the supply chain that will come to this region to support Micron's facility, 50,000 new jobs in Central New York across a host of sectors, industries. That when we made the announcement, it was described by, I think it was Senator Schumer at the time, this generation's Erie Canal moment in upstate and Central New York. Now, my relationship with April goes, actually, and it occurred to me this morning, it was actually 2 years ago this month, and it could have even been this week, when before Micron had made a decision to come to Central New York. It had a code name. It was like CIA stuff, and folks were sneaking around. I think you couldn't even fly into the Syracuse airport because newspapers were watching. So Micron had to fly into other airports and drive here because didn't want to tip off anyone where they were looking. But that first visit was January 2 years ago, when a team of leaders from Micron, including the CEO, came to the campus of Syracuse University and visited with us. And, really, I think they were checking us out because Micron needs an academic partner to make this work. And And we are, Syracuse University, that academic partner, which is why I'm thrilled that the first senior leader at Micron to speak in one of our schools and colleges is April, speaking in the Whitman School of Management. So with that, why don't we start, April? Just talk a little bit about your journey at Micron. And I think you went from a recruiting position now to role as Executive Vice President, Chief People Officer, and the leader responsible for the expansion of Micron into Central New York. So give us the Cliff Notes version of the story.
For sure. Well, thank you, first of all. And I just want to comment, that trip 2 years ago, this January, there's two things I remember. I'm pretty sure it was 9 degrees.
Yeah, it was. We were a little worried. That
was very cold.
That was not the recruiting brochure day. But yeah, it was cold. It was cold.
It was 9 degrees. But the second thing that, just stuck with me as we moved through the decision-making process through the spring was the leadership at this university. And we, as a Fortune 500 tech company, constantly expanding. We visit new geographies all the time, all across the globe. Never before has one of our first partnerships and relationships, even before we made the decision, been a university. But here it was. And immediately, I think you and I, both having business backgrounds,
we were the only two that could talk in a room full of engineers.
Exactly.
Yeah, we didn't know what else was going on, but yeah.
Yes. So this one is different. This expansion, this growth, this opportunity in front of us is definitely different, and it started differently the moment we engaged and made our decision. So thank you for your partnership. So my career journey, I'm sure you've read my bio, and I'm sure the first thing that stands out is the same company for 25 years, actually 27 years. No one does that. No one does that anymore. But I like to be different. I like to be unique, and it has been incredible. I came to Micron right out of school. First of all, I was first-gen college student. So I came from rural Idaho, like the northern part of the state. First-gen college student, did not have a model to follow. And that was the best thing that could have happened to me. I had no idea what I would get myself into, but I'd jump in. And all throughout my university career, and by the way, I am a business student, a College of Business grad, a double major in human resources. Anyone in human resources here? 0, okay. Marketing was my second major. Anyone in marketing?
There's some marketing folks in the room.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. And it was, incredible education, but more so, it taught me to make myself uncomfortable, to go out, find other experiences to learn from, and to constantly, better myself and look for new knowledge and people I could be around to help elevate my own thinking. It went into Micron, stepped into an entry-level role, and frankly, within the first 6 weeks, I was ready to quit. And the role was too entry-level for me because I was a new college grad, and I knew everything, and I knew I could do more. But I walked in with a really bad attitude, and my mindset was not the right mindset. And so 6 weeks into the job, I had my mental conversation, is this really for me? What should I do? And I made a choice at that moment. And I decided I'm going to figure out how to make this right for me. I'm going to figure out how to leverage this entry-level opportunity to upgrade myself. And I turned my mindset around, and I started every single day I'd come in, I'd figure out how to learn something new and still get my job done, of course. And that changed everything for me. That was a game changer for me. I started loving coming into work, found people to go talk to, found new opportunities to learn. I started raising my hand for every unique project that nobody else seemed to want to do. And then all of a sudden, my career took off. And you put yourself out there, and you're willing to take the initiative and go find those opportunities that might be scary, by the way, and should be. If they're really learning opportunities, they will make you uncomfortable, but that can change your career. So I almost blew it early on in my career until I realized how you actually can be success and stay at the same company and find challenge at every turn. It was a big transition to move from individual contributor to leader. That's a whole nother conversation, but then you have to change your definition of success and definition of learning. You're responsible for others and their careers. But that was a next step that I took inside of Micron as well after a successful career as an individual contributor, stepping into a leadership role. And then, moving into an executive role, another huge transition that you really can't be prepared for, but business school actually did prepare me for that. And the reason is, when you're an executive, when you get to the senior level, you are no longer just an expert in your field. That's like price of entry. You are a business leader, and you have to think across the enterprise how you're going to make that business successful. And so oftentimes in other colleges, which are of course all great, but oftentimes business schools are much more interdisciplinary than any other colleges, and that's what prepares you for the business world. So career-wise, I've just been very fortunate. I've had a lot of great leaders, a lot of great mentors, but I will tell you the biggest thing is really setting yourself up for success is about a mindset and what you're going to go do to make yourself successful, because nobody else is responsible for your success except for yourself.
I'm going to get in trouble with Sarah because I'm going to go off script for a second.
Yeah, that's right.
But could you just share a little bit your portfolio? So every time I talk to you, you're in a different part of the world. What is that portfolio?
Yeah. So Chief People Officer, and yes, sometimes I get people asking me, is that really a title? It is really a title. I am responsible for people, human resources at Micron. We are a global company. We have about 45,000 employees across the globe, 17 countries. So I do often have to travel. In fact, 70% of our workforce right now is overseas. So only 30% of our workforce is in the United States. So as you can imagine, being the Chief People Officer, you do have to get out and visit your employees and your communities. Within my scope, I also am the president of our Micron Foundation. So all of our philanthropic giving, all of our investments in the community also fall under my responsibility. So we really think about end to end. We know that in order to have a successful company, people are a pretty important ingredient, but it extends beyond just our four walls inside the company. We know that if you don't invest in communities, you won't have a productive and healthy workforce. So we really do connect those strategies, and it's been quite successful in this endeavor here in Central New York.
So, April, you're when I first asked you to do this, I think you said, can't wait, business school. They're my people in business schools, and commented that, because Micron is a bleeding edge technology company, I went out to visit their headquarters in Boise, and we took a tour through the R&D fab out there, I guess it was, and I felt like I was in an episode of Star Trek. I didn't understand much of anything that was going on. That's how high tech it was. Walked past a wall. How many patents does Micron hold?
We're over 55,000 right
50,
now.
and they have every one of them on a wall. It's just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But you are the business leader in an environment where the company's dominated by engineers. How do you navigate that such that you can both contribute and lead in an environment where most of your peers don't come from a business background, but instead an engineering background?
Yeah. It is, as I mentioned, it is so important as a leader of any company, pick your company, that you do have a broad perspective. You do have to understand how a business works. And there is absolutely the need to understand what products or services you deliver, how you get value, what value you deliver. And for us at Micron, that is our memory. So our engineers are critically important to the development of our products and our technology. That's where I do hang out at the engineering college a little bit here and there and enjoy a good electronics 101 lecture once in a while. But again, if you don't understand more than just the value you can deliver, you have to understand how to go to market. You, of course, have to understand the financials. You've got to be able to understand supply chain. You've got to be able to understand people and some of the human resources basics, because I guarantee if you can't hire people or retain people, then you don't have a business. All financials, shareholders, it all is connected. I don't know a single business that doesn't have a lot of connective tissue between the products that they deliver, the technology or service they deliver, and the business part of the company, because neither can exist without the other. And that's how I think about, certainly working with my peers who are mostly engineers by training and by education. I need to understand how to speak their language. I need to understand how to connect with them. I need to understand what is important to them. But then I have to bring that back to what does that mean for the business? What does that mean for the people? I mean, even as a human resources executive, I have to understand a lot about financials. So it all is very important. That business perspective is incredibly important, but you have to translate it into the products or the services and the value that you deliver. How do you make money? Or how do you serve your mission or your purpose if you're a nonprofit? And then you can figure out what your business model is.
So anybody that has risen to the level of what you've achieved, you've probably, that journey has included wins and losses, I'm sure. And would you mind sharing an instance where, despite your education, your training, your experience, your best effort, best due diligence, you failed?
Yeah.
And maybe what you learned from that you've carried forward?
Yeah, for sure. Failures are part of learning. And while no one loves in the moment failing, at the end of the day, we all fail. We're all human. And my list of failures is very long. There are two kinds of failures for me. Certainly there are, my own individual failures, and I'll share one with you. But there's also when you fail someone on your team, and those are harder for me. Those hurt a little bit more. I never want to fail my team. I can handle my own failure, but failing my team is tough. Probably 10 years into my career, I started engaging with our board. And we have a great board, but I was, young and eager and excited, and I don't know if you know about board structure. You generally have a board, and then there are committees that are comprised of a few board members, but not the full board. I started to engage with one specific committee, and you have quarterly meetings. And there was material prepared, and I knew most of it, but I had not fully read the appendix. And sure enough, a board member started asking about some material that was in the appendix. And I had no idea what they were talking about, and I guarantee I never made that mistake again. So being prepared for any situation and making sure you know your stuff and you are ready to answer questions, especially for a board who their time is so precious, and you get the opportunity to get a lot of wisdom and insights, and so using that time wisely by being prepared, very important. But I had to learn that lesson the hard way and walk in when I wasn't fully prepared. Other failures when I've not delivered what I wanted to deliver to my team. Anytime you take a risk, you bring someone into a role who maybe doesn't have the exact right background, but you think you can help develop them and get them to be successful in the role. And, it's 50-50. And I've certainly had some great successes, people who've gone on to do great things, but I've also had some that I just have not been able to coach and develop and guide and to make them a success. And that is really tough for me when that happens, but it does happen.
So how about the other side of the coin? Again, to get where you're at, you've also had to win sometimes too, and deliver some big wins for the firm. Can you talk about maybe one of those that was really an inflection point in your career?
Yeah, one of my I mentioned earlier, I have this repeated history of raising my hand to do these projects, especially when no one else is interested. And it was around 2000, maybe 2001, and we were just starting a new product line, a new technology. And we had zero capability as a company. We had no engineers with this knowledge and with this background, but we knew where in the world they existed. And one of the locations was the Philippines. And of course, that is always an interesting place to go and visit. There are a lot of great people, a lot of great talent, but infrastructure, safety at the time, was somewhat of a concern. But we needed to go hire these engineers, and I raised my hand and said, I'm in, let's go. And packed up my bags and went to the Philippines and hired some excellent talent, and we were able to start up our entire NAND organization and NAND technology, which now, of course, is billions of dollars of revenue for the company. But that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't gone and gotten those first engineers who had this training, who had this capability. From then, I kind of got a reputation inside the company that I absolutely would be willing to jump in and do something, especially if there was a lot of ambiguity, it wasn't defined, no one had ever done it before. I'd get the phone call. So I think that really did help set me up.
Sort of like the Indiana Jones of Micron.
Yeah, kind of, yes. I do love my good adventures, so.
So over the past year, Micron and Micron coming to Central New York I don't think there's a day that passes that there's not another story, on Syracuse.com or local TV news. What excites you about, both this opportunity and the semiconductor industry more broadly?
Yeah. The semiconductor industry is in a great inflection point. Prior to the pandemic, no one really knew about semiconductors, or very few people knew about semiconductors. But during the pandemic, it certainly did shine a light on the need and necessity of semiconductors. And many countries are now revising their investment strategies in this industry. And of course, with technology trends like AI, like autonomous driving, there is just so much opportunity for technology transformation, but none of that happens without memory, without semiconductors. So timing is right. Timing is absolutely right for this expansion. And it's America's opportunity to kind of regain an industry where we've lost a lot lately in the last couple of decades. Semiconductors were invented here in the United States, but they slowly moved all across the globe, and now we've got the opportunity to reinvest. So I'm excited about the technology and what it will fuel out in the industry, but I'm excited about the opportunity and the jobs that it's going to bring for all Americans, anyone who wants to participate in this career, and for our expansion specifically here in this region. I'm excited about the opportunity to reach an entire new talent ecosystem that Micron has not leveraged before, and there is so much rich talent and so much education infrastructure here that I know it's going to help make us wildly successful, and it's going to help us staff to the numbers that the Vice Chancellor mentioned earlier.
So I'm going to go off script again, but it just occurred to me it's important. Do you want to and I know you're not the engineer, but just the difference between memory semiconductors, which Micron is the only domestic manufacturer of
Correct.
Semiconductor memory, versus what the Intels and the AMDs of the world do. That could be helpful context for these guys.
Yeah. So in semiconductor, there is a lot of semiconductor silicon is used for logic, and processors, and that's what you hear, the Intels and the AMDs. There's also smaller semiconductor companies that are more focused on CMOS and sensors, all the sensors that are around your automobiles. That's a different type. And then there are memory companies, so memory and storage, like the memory that's in your cell phone, in your PC, in your car, in the cloud. everything has to be stored and data has to be moved. And so memory and storage, DRAM, NAND, SSDs, that's where Micron plays. Our major competitors, just for some comparison, Samsung and Hynix out of Korea are really the two other prominent players in the memory industry. But silicon is split between a few different product lines.
So, back to all those jobs,
Yes.
and so much of the buzz, even here on this campus and at SU, has been around opportunities for STEM students, engineering students. But you're here to tell these guys that that's not the only opportunity, right? Can you talk a little bit, from the perspective of a business school student, what maybe Micron, what doors could be open for them in the context of this opportunity?
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, no company runs without us business people. It is imperative that the company think through everything necessary to be successful. You've got to have just about all of the functions represented, and really thinking through and providing expertise, whether it be financial management, human resources, supply chain, everything. It is really an opportunity for all of you who might be interested. I absolutely, the first thing I would say is learn about the industry, make sure it's a fit for you. Not every industry is a fit for everyone, and so you do have to do your research. But if you think semiconductor might be of interest, and Micron might be of interest more specifically, there are a lot of opportunities to engage with us. And of course, we're just getting started. We haven't even broken ground on our facility here yet, but early on, we're starting to fill our pipeline with interns. So if you're interested and you want to get in early, looking at our internship opportunities and pursuing those, very, very important. I will share with you, I had to interview, get turned down, and interview again before I got a job at Micron. So a little bit of patience and a lot of persistence also plays in your favor. But it's real, the opportunities are real, and I think the Vice Chancellor and I have told you a little bit about, we've been working together for a couple of years. I think it was meeting number 4, and we got some work done. Again, when we close the door and sit down, we get a lot of stuff done, which is what I like. Vice Chancellor speaks my language. At the end of the meeting, after we got all of our, whatever topics we needed to discuss, the Vice Chancellor says, "Hey, by the way, I know this engineering student," and he hands me a resume. And he's probably thinking she probably gets, hundreds of thousands of resumes a year, which we do. Probably thought it was not going to go anywhere. The resume that he handed me was Savion Pollard, and he was our first hire for Micron, and he was showcased at the Biden event the following in that October.
Yeah, poor Savion didn't know what he was getting himself into when he gave me his resume, because it went from a conversation at the table to showing up with the President of the United States and the Micron leadership when we did the big community set of announcements here in Central New York. But yeah.
So the opportunities are real, and timing is everything. But patience, persistence. If this is what you want to be part of, pursue it, and pursue it with passion.
Do you want to share also just the timeline for the
Yep.
Central New York, just roughly?
Yep, for sure. So we won't start actual digging until the end of this year. There are a lot of environmental reviews and permitting that has to happen throughout the year and throughout the spring. But we're hoping to start clearing everything, and then of course we'll have to wait through the freeze, see how long next winter is. But the moment we're able to really start digging and pouring cement, after that, that's when it will occur. So really the end of this calendar year or beginning of next is when we'll start building the facility. Then it usually takes a year. But you can imagine, again, we have to start hiring some roles much earlier, and definitely internships for people who are going to graduate in a year or 2 or 3. That is where our focus is.
At places like Manassas, Virginia, where
Yep.
Micron has a fab, out in Boise.
We
Yep.
send you to our other locations with the intent that maybe you want to actually stay at those locations, which would be fine if you wanted to return to those locations, but with the idea that eventually you would go on to work at our Micron Syracuse or Clay, New York facility. The functions that get hired first, you'll like this, business functions. Of course, I have to staff my team first. Finance has to start working on their talent, all of us on the business side. We don't necessarily need the manufacturing facility to get our functions started, but of course the real scale will happen when we've got the facility open.
So let me ask you a decision-making question.
Yes.
This project by itself, the project in Clay, is massive. I mean, how big are these facilities? How many football fields long?
This one will be 40 football fields, so they're 10 each, so 600,000 square feet per fab. It's pretty big.
And then you layer on top of that the existing business and global operations.
Yep.
You must have so much information coming to you. How, in the context of your role, sort of towards the top of the pyramid, do you cut through all the noise and sort of make sense of all of this such that you're making decisions in a way that's not only appropriate but timely, instead of just processing all of this information all the time?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it can get overwhelming. We are an engineering company, so we're very data-driven, and we all gravitate to the data, which is exactly where you should start. But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to lift yourself up out of the data so that you don't get paralyzed by the data, which we tend to do once in a while. And you really got, what I find to be my guiding principle is go back to your strategy. And is it going to help you get you further along in your strategy? And if it is, sometimes if your data is imperfect, you don't have the right data, you got to go. You got to move. I would rather make a decision, move, and then course correct if I get some new data, new information that says we need to adjust the strategy. So, but it can be overwhelming. And at the end of the day, if you use your strategy as your guiding principle, independent of all the noise, that's usually a place to start. But the second thing I would say, and occasionally this will happen, sometimes you actually just have to lean on your values. And never compromise the values, no matter what your data, what information that you're getting. If it goes against your values, don't make that decision. So there are usually, in any company, there are some guiding principles that you want to use in decision making because you can get lost in data.
So I want to make sure I leave a little time for our students to ask you a couple questions. But before I do that, I'm going to ask one more. So,
Yep.
You look at these faces, think back to when you were in those shoes, sitting in a business school classroom, in the context of all of your experience, accumulated over all these years. If you had one piece of advice to give them, what would it be at this point?
So I had the opportunity in 2018 to go to Stanford and get my executive MBA. And it was at that moment, and I wish I would have known it in undergrad. It was at that moment where I really embraced, yes, academics is great, learning is great, I'm a lifelong learner, but it actually is more about your network. And it's more about all of you in this room leveraging each other, helping each other, elevate each other. That's when the light bulb went on for me that I wish I would have developed a stronger network that would have carried me through my career. I think I could have gone even further faster, but it's never too late. And I've developed a great network. But having people around you who have different experiences, perspectives, can really give you feedback and be honest with you, can help you make connections, incredibly important. Academics, of course, very important, but I guarantee your network will probably have a bigger impact on your career.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, who out there has got a question? Oh, we're not doing this. Somebody's got some questions.
I think there's one up here.
There you go. Where are we going?
All right.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mariah. So I'm a business analytics student, and I just wanted to know what technical skills do you think could be useful, even just talking with like engineers or just being in the semiconductor business?
Technical skills, I think you've got to have the ability to understand data and analytics. It doesn't matter what your expertise is. That's really, really important. And whether I'm talking to an engineer or a finance person or anyone across the business, understanding and being able to talk about metrics and measures and data appropriate for your business is just kind of a timeless technical skill that really transcends the entire enterprise. So knowing what your key metrics and measures and drivers are for your business and being able to talk about them and ask questions about them, really the most important thing.
Hi, my name is Charlie. I have two that kind of play off of each other. So first, we've recently seen a shift towards AI and automation and EVs or even blockchain, and it's just showing how important tech innovation is. And the first part is, how do you see the semiconductors really fitting into those like tech innovations? And then also, with that in mind, is there like a plan in place or like an idea on how Micron is going to pull away from Samsung or Hynix?
Yeah.
So your corporate strategy is what he's asking.
Sure.
He wants to know what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So first question, yes, I mentioned at the outset, those technology trends are absolutely fueling semiconductors, and that's why you're seeing a lot of countries invest in that. No country wants to fall short and not have semiconductors and not be able to move their technology forward, have access to AI, have secure, stable supply for national security reasons, autonomous vehicles, everything that you just raised. So very important, and none of that happens without memory and storage. So we're right in the middle of this perfect storm, which is exactly where we want to be. Our company strategy is actually not a secret. We talk about it all the time. Our strategy is not necessarily to be the biggest like Samsung. We don't have all of these other divisions, commercial divisions that Samsung has to fuel our business. Our strategy is to be the leader. Our strategy is to be the leader in technology, and our strategy is to deliver leading products in key markets that we define for our customers. And that has served us very well. In the last couple of years, we have pulled ahead on a lot of technologies, and we are beating Samsung and Hynix in many different sectors. So by our measure of what we're trying to achieve, we are seeing success, but our strategy is not to have more revenue than Samsung. That would be impossible and drive a different set of decisions that are not healthy for our business.
My name is Alondra. I was wondering, as the Chief People Officer, how you were going to ensure that Micron received the talent that they need for Central New York and ensuring that the community here isn't negatively affected by, I guess, the migration of so many people here in pursuit of jobs.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so my first priority here, and this is why I am here even a year before we put a shovel in the ground, is to cultivate the local and regional talent. Yes, we will move some people in, especially some of our experienced folks that we'll have to bring in so that they can help bring up the factory. But it is about Central New York, and it is Central New York's moment to have this opportunity. So one of the first things we did is to set up networks of education institutions and education partners to help prepare the talent for these future jobs. And of course, SU has been right at the heart of those strategies and helped be a connector. Of course, we can't just rely on only the excellent students coming out of this university. We have to partner with all of the regional universities. So we've got a Northeast University network. We've got a workforce consortium. So really leveraging all of the partners to help us prepare that workforce. But Micron's strategy is never just to go after university and community college talent. We actually start in K-12. And we've already started investing in K-12 and started implementing our chip camps at the local schools here. So we're trying to even incent and educate and create awareness with those young students because we know they're going to be our workforce in 10 and 15 years.
Okay. Hi, my name is Emeka. I'm a first-year MBA student. I'm wondering what your experience has been like as the Chief People Officer at Micron in managing different generations at the workplace. You have Gen Z, I'm a millennial, you have the baby boomers, and I'd like to learn some nuggets from your experience.
Be careful.
Thank you.
And it is a great question. It is one of the toughest challenges we're starting to experience because the older generations, they're staying in the workforce longer, and we want them to stay. They've got incredible knowledge. They've got a lot of value to offer to the company, and they mentor often. They mentor others. So the generational gap is widening, and that is making it more challenging. But this is where you have to turn your focus to helping people. We hire a lot of brilliant people. IQ, very important in our company. I mean, you don't have over 50,000 patents without it, right? But EQ, that's becoming more and more important. And it's really about just understanding the other person's perspectives and building those bridges and respecting people for what they bring to the table because we all bring something different to the table. But it is a challenge, and you have to have that additional intentional focus about helping people understand others' perspectives and creating that inclusive environment where it doesn't matter if you have worked at the company for 2 months or 20 years, your perspectives are heard, listened, and valued, and make an impact. That's the kind of environment you have to create.
Hi. Oh. It is? Oh. Hi, I'm Marissa. I was wondering, how did you decide to stay at Micron and continue the career growth after being stagnant for a while? How did you continue to go with passion and move with passion?
It's a great question, and stagnant for a while happened for a whole 3 months. But our industry and our company is constantly changing and evolving, just like technology is. When you're in tech, you are moving at a pace that for a lot of industries, it's unheard of. And I thrive in that. Not everyone does, but if you do thrive in that type of environment, and that's why I say do your homework. Make sure the company or the industry that you pursue is something that fits you. I thrive in constant change and disruption. And so I did not feel my career was stagnant at all because there was always that next thing that I could raise my hand and go do. And it obviously served me fairly well throughout my career because it really enabled that next promotion.
Hi, my name is Gustavo. So as we know, at the end of the semester, we declare our official majors. Personally, I'm very interested in the field of marketing in the hopes of pursuing a career in leadership such as yours. How did your studies in marketing help you achieve the position you have today at Micron?
Yeah, especially because, interesting, and I didn't know this at the time. It was purely accidental. But in being the chief people officer, marketing actually is incredibly important. And of course, having the community role that I have to play, incredibly important. And actually, I think everyone, really, all of us are served well if we have cross-functional business skills. There's no doubt about it. There's not one domain that is more important than the other. But marketing is cross-cutting. It enables you to do things in the company that are so critical for success. And in my role, Chief People Officer, if I'm not able to articulate to prospective students, to the community, to others, the value and the opportunity that Micron has, I'm not going to be able to attract them. So marketing is just one of those fundamental skills, kind of like analytics. Doesn't matter where you're at in the business, but it's just a really good core skill, and it actually paired quite nicely with my role. I didn't know it at the time, but it's been incredibly helpful.
Well, thanks for that. Now, Alex and I are going to get "I told you so" emails from every marketing faculty member. I see Raj raise his hand in the back. There's one down here. Oh, over there.
Hi, I'm Ava. So I just had a quick question in terms of your position as the Chief People Officer. So in terms of trying to foster like employee growth and development within Micron, are there any initiatives that you've created to kind of really focus on the well-being of your employees?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the pillars in our people strategy, we have 5 pillars. One of them is careers and continuous growth. We absolutely know in order for our business to be successful, in order for our people to stay, we need to invest in their careers. So we actually have, in addition to paying for continued education, so if someone wants to go back and get another degree, Micron covers it up to $10,000 per year. So if you go to, depending on where you go, it could be covered. But we also have an internal Micron University. So we actually have our own internal course curriculum as well for people to continuously learn. So we're always investing in people's career. We know it's incredibly important, and we know that everyone's jobs, doesn't matter who you are, including my job, is disrupted constantly. And so people have to keep their skills fresh. I keep coming back to analytics, but I also can't reinforce analytics enough. That is a skill that every single one of us, does not matter what your role is, you've got to have some level of analytics capability. So now you might get some other emails too. But it is, so it is our responsibility as a company to make sure that we're investing in our employees.
Time for maybe 2 more.
Hi, I'm Maddie. I just had a question specific to your job and the field of technology, and what the creative liberties and autonomy you have within projects to really do things that you find interesting or meaningful and enjoy doing.
Yeah, so it really has been the hallmark of my career, jumping into very ambiguous things and creating something that delivers value and makes sense and makes an impact inside of our company. One of the things I did when I was in recruiting was early on, and I won't give you any time frame because that will totally date myself, although I've already dated myself because I told you I've been at the company for 27 years. But we didn't have the internet presence, the social media presence that we needed to. And a few of us recognized it and we jumped in. We weren't asked to do it. We did ask permission, but nobody told us what we needed to go do. We just created a project plan. We figured out how much it would take, the investment, and we went and presented it, and we totally got it endorsed and were able to implement. This was very early on when internet was starting to become the place where people were finding jobs more and more. But you recognize an opportunity or a problem that needs to be solved, and you go make some recommendations. I guarantee you're going to get someone's attention. You might not get a yes every time, but if you are out there looking for those opportunities to add more value, you'll find them.
Hey, I'm Hung. I'm an international student from Vietnam, and I'm just out of curiosity, because recently late last year, I saw news on NVIDIA investing $250 million in Vietnam for their semiconductor plants. And I just want to ask you, are you guys looking in Vietnam for talents, just like you did with the Philippines and stuff like that?
Yeah. Vietnam is a great source of talent. We don't have any investment plans in the country, but we do look at talent from their university ecosystem as well, particularly for our factories and our R&D in Singapore and Taiwan and Japan. So it's a great source of talent. But your comment about NVIDIA's investment, again, just underscores what is happening in semiconductor right now. Every company is investing in growth, including NVIDIA, which is a great customer of ours, by the way.
I said 2 more, but She's been trying to get her question in, so we're going to let her ask it.
Thank you. So my name is Freya, and my question is just about like the ethics. Since you guys outsource so much of your work, I'm wondering how you're able to like keep an eye on all of that, especially in countries where they have really loose regulations on ethics and treating like your employees, and how you keep oversight in all of that when you have so many different, plants in different places.
Yeah. So our strategy is actually less on the outsourcing side. We actually don't outsource as much as other. We do our own manufacturing, both the front end of the manufacturing and the back end of the manufacturing, the testing, all of that. Some semiconductor companies are fabless, so they do outsource. We do it differently. But nonetheless, you always have a supply chain, you always have contractors, and integrity and doing business right is so important to us that our procurement team actually does audits with our supply chain, with our providers, with our contractors, people in our supply chain ecosystem, to make sure that they're abiding by what we would consider to be the right standards.
Well, April, I cannot thank you enough for your willingness to come out and do this. Please help me thank April. I also want to thank all of you. As I said, we're going to make this events like this a regular occurrence at the Whitman School. I encourage you to continue to come out, continue to learn, and encourage you to join us up. Hold on. So April's a big runner, and so I called our athletic director, and I had him raid the track and field cross-country closet for you.
Oh.
So here's some SU gear to wear proudly.
Is it used?
Nope, it's not used.
Okay.
It wasn't the laundry room closet. It was the new swag closet. So some nice.
Lovely.
But thank you,
Thank you.
and please join us upstairs for a reception to thank and welcome April. Thanks, everybody.
You.